There are guys that you're looking at and going, hey, why is this guy not in the Hall of Fame?
Receiver you won a Super Bowl with, Tory Holt, he didn't make the Hall of Fame again.
His time's coming.
While the Canton voters have gotten the vast majority of their Hall of Fame choices right, they've still made their fair share of mistakes. Let us dive into 5 Hall of Famers who don't belong in Canton and 5 retired players who are well overdue for an induction. And a big shout out to Devin Byfield Johnson 2925 for suggesting this video. Doesn't belong, Joe Namath. Broadway Joe was the face of New York sports for much of his 12-year run with the organization. He had a larger-than-life personality, and his off-the-field swagger made him more than just an athlete in the Big Apple. Namath became a New York sports icon forever when he led the Jets to a Super Bowl III championship over the heavily favored Baltimore Colts. Namath memorably guaranteed a Jets win even though they were a 19.5-point underdog. And yet, they still took down the powerhouse Colts by a final score of 16-7. But if you take away Namath's Super Bowl win, there is absolutely zero reason for him to be in the Hall of Fame. He was a 4-time AFL All-Star, but also made just 1 Pro Bowl during the AFL-NFL merger. Namath completed just 50.1% of pass attempts for his career. He had 173 touchdowns against 220 interceptions, finishing with a career quarterback rating of 65.5. Namath, truth be told, was a below-average quarterback. He had his one flash-in-the-pan moment in Super Bowl III. So have many other quarterbacks, and you're not hearing calls for Joe Flacco, Trent Dilfer, or Jeff Hostetler. No, Namath should not be in the Hall of Fame. But I guess when you play in a big market, it's pretty easy to get overhyped. And that was most certainly the case with Broadway Joe here. Should be in Jim Marshall. Marshall is best known for his timeless wrong way run blooper in a 1964 game between his Minnesota Vikings and the San Francisco 49ers. Okay, so it was a silly little gaffe, but that shouldn't be Marshall's legacy. He should have been a proud Canton member decades ago. I mean, his resume speaks for itself. A 1969 NFL championship, 130.5 career sacks, 2 Pro Bowl nods, and 3 second-team All-Pro selections. As a Viking, Marshall made 270 consecutive starts, an NFL record that has since been smashed by Brett Favre. Marshall made up a quarter of the Vikings' Purple People Eaters defensive front that also featured Carl Eller, Alan Page, and Gary Larson. Marshall also helped the Vikings to 4 Super Bowl appearances, though they were all losses. Hey, I'm just saying, if Jerry Kramer and Drew Pearson can get in decades after their playing careers, then so can Marshall. Doesn't belong, Lynn Swann. It's almost as if the Hall of Fame committee had a rule where any above-average player for the Pittsburgh Steelers' Steel Curtain dynasty automatically got entry into the Hall. Case in point, wide receiver Lynn Swann. Swann played on a star-studded Steelers offense that featured fellow Hall of Famers and QB Terry Bradshaw, running back Franco Harris, center Mike Webster, and fellow wide receiver John Stallworth. Swann was a member of all 4 Super Bowl championship teams in the Steel Curtain era, and he was named Super Bowl X MVP. But folks, let me tell you, he was only a 3-time Pro Bowler and 1-time first-team All-Pro. Secondly, Swann's numbers by no means scream Hall of Fame. What if we told you that he had 0 1,000-yard seasons? There are guys who have put up more than double his receiving yards total that aren't in the Hall of Fame. Not to take away anything from Swann's excellent run in Steel City, but the stats don't lie. There is simply no way he should be in the Hall of Fame. He was just one of many good players on an all-time great Steelers squad. Should be in Sterling Sharpe. If a neck injury didn't force him to retire after his age 29 season in 1994, Sharpe would have been a Hall of Famer in his first year of eligibility. Here's the fun fact though, Sharpe was so freaking good during his 7-year career that he should be in the Hall of Fame anyway. I mean, Terrell Davis only had 4 elite and healthy seasons and Canton still inducted him, so why can't they do the same for Sharpe? The older brother of Hall of Fame tight end Shannon Sharpe, Sterling hit 1K receiving in 5 of his 7 NFL seasons. He was a 5-time Pro Bowler and 3-time first-team All-Pro who led the NFL in receptions 3 times and in receiving yards twice. Sharpe won the Triple Crown in receiving in 1992 after leading the NFL in catches with 108, in receiving yards with 1,461, and in receiving TDs with 13. You just rarely ever saw numbers like that from pass catchers in a single season. In 7 total seasons, Sharpe had 595 receptions, 8,134 yards, and 65 touchdowns. That man belongs in Canton. Doesn't belong, Jackie Smith. Sadly, NFL fans best remember Smith for his costly drop in the end zone of Super Bowl 13 between his Dallas Cowboys and the Steelers, and not the man who is enshrined in Canton. Before joining Dallas for his final season in 1978, Smith spent 15 seasons with the St. Louis Cardinals. He earned 5 Pro Bowl nods and 4 second-team All-Pro selections during his run with the organization. But Smith was never once a first-team All-Pro, and his stats were not exactly eye-popping here. He had one campaign of 1,000 yards receiving, and he only exceeded 4 receiving touchdowns in one season. Smith retired with 480 receptions for 7,918 yards and 40 touchdowns. Those aren't Hall of Fame numbers by any means. Luckily for Smith, true star-level tight ends were few and far between in those days, so I guess that worked in his advantage for Hall of Fame consideration. Should be in Patrick Willis. If Willis didn't shockingly retire after his age 29 2014 season, then he would have been a lock for Canton. Same deal as Sterling Sharpe. But another thing, Willis was on another level of greatness during his 8-year career. Same deal as Sharpe. And you know, the man should be in Canton anyway, even if Willis didn't play as long as other legendary linebackers. Willis was a Pro Bowler in each of his first 7 seasons. He only missed out in 2014 because of a toe injury that limited him to 6 games. I want you to think about that for a second. He won 2007 Defensive Rookie of the Year honors, was a 5-time Pro Bowler, and even got named to the 2010s All-Decade team despite not playing in the back half of the decade. He led the NFL in tackles and fell just 50 shy of 1,000 for his career. He was in the upper echelon of defensive players during his 8-year career and led San Fran to 3 straight NFC Championship game appearances from 2011 to 2013. Seriously, what more does Canton want? He was eligible for the Hall of Fame years ago, and he, like the rest of us, continued to wait for the call. Doesn't belong. Bob Hayes. Hayes had a decorated 10-year run with the Dallas Cowboys from 1965 to 74 before spending 1 year with the 49ers. Hayes certainly was one of the top wide receivers of his generation, but putting him in the Hall of Fame was quite a stretch, to say the least. Hayes put up 1,000-yard seasons in his rookie and sophomore years, and then he never did so again. In fact, his production just continued to decline more and more as the seasons passed. Hayes had 900-yard seasons in 1967 and 68, and then he finished below that mark the rest of the way for his career. Over his final 4 seasons, Hayes never topped 22 catches or 360 yards in a season. Yes, he won a Super Bowl and was named to 3 Pro Bowls, but his stats were never off the charts, and the longevity just was not there. Put simply, there is no strong reason for Hayes to be a Hall of Famer. He retired with 371 career receptions for 7,414 yards and 71 touchdowns. Those are numbers for the unofficial Hall of Very Good. Should be in Ken Anderson. One of the most underrated quarterbacks ever, Anderson spent his entire career with the Cincinnati Bengals, which stemmed from 1971 to 86. Anderson was a 4-time Pro Bowler who led the NFL in passing yards twice, in passer rating 4 times, and in completion percentage thrice. His 1981 season was one for the ages, as Anderson won MVP, Comeback Player of the Year, and Offensive Player of the Year honors. Anderson led the Bengals to their first ever Super Bowl appearance that year, where they fell to Joe Montana and the soon-to-be dynastic 49ers. Anderson finished with 32,838 career passing yards and 197 touchdowns against 160 interceptions. Anderson was one of the most prolific passers of his era, and you gotta think that he would be in the Hall by now if his Bengals had won a Super Bowl. Doesn't belong John Stallworth. Stallworth is in the same boat as the aforementioned Lynn Swann. He was part of the Steelers' 4 Super Bowl championship teams in the Steel Curtain era. He was a very good but not elite wide receiver. But like we said earlier, it's as if the Canton committee just wanted to put any good to very good Steelers player from that dynasty in the Hall. A look at Stallworth's numbers and you'll simply ask yourself why he got enshrined in the first place. The 3-time Pro Bowler exceeded 1,000 yards receiving only 3 times in his career. He never once led the NFL in receptions, receiving yards, or receiving TDs. Now, not to take away anything from Stallworth, but those numbers are not at all Hall of Fame caliber. It's not like during his career he was ever in the discussion for the game's best receiver. But again, there was the benefit of playing for the Steelers during their glory years, thus being overhyped big time to the point where you got your own gold jacket. Should be in Tory Holt. Holt Kurt Warner, Isaac Bruce, and Marshall Faulk headlined the St. Louis Rams' greatest show on turf offense that propelled them to a Super Bowl 34 championship, plus another big game appearance 2 years later. Aside from a Super Bowl ring, Holt was a 7-time Pro Bowler who was named to the 2000s All-Decade team. He is 17th all-time in receiving yards with 13,382 and 22nd all-time in receptions with 920. Yes, he was often overshadowed by co-star wideout Isaac Bruce, but Holt's longevity and off-the-world numbers would have gotten him more attention just about anywhere else. We know they played in different eras, but Holt's career stats easily trump those of Hall of Famers like Swann and Stallworth. How much longer must Holt wait until he gets his call? But what other NFL players shouldn't be in the Hall of Fame? And which other retired players belong in it? Let us know in the comment section below. If you like this video and learned a thing or two, clicking the like button helps out a ton. And hey, we appreciate it. If this is your first time coming around to TPS though, subscribing is a great idea because we put out videos like this every single day. But as always, thanks for watching and we'll see you guys next time.